How many stories do you have? Have you ever thought how many others have similar stories to you? Welcome to Merging Lanes Podcast, a fan-based podcast where I take your story and find others similar online. If you have a story that you'd like to submit, email it to jukeboxginger88@gmail.com. What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Jukebox Ginger, back with another episode of Merging Lanes, and I am so excited about this one. I've took a week off between doing another episode because I was kind of thinking about how I wanted to do this as I, grow with this show in particular. And I think I'm going to interact a little bit more during the stories than I have been in the past. Kind of give a little bit of feedback, a little bit more oomph and energy into the show. More, I'll still be telling the stories and reading them as well, but I think I kind of want to throw a little feedback in there in the mix to kind of make it a little different. You know what I mean? Nightmares. We all, most of us have probably had nightmares, and if you haven't had a nightmare, then well, good for you. I think. I don't know. I enjoy them. I like telling them when I remember them. I mean, how many dreams do you guys remember? That's another thing. Like, where's what makes a dream stick to where you can wake up and tell it the next day? Have you ever had those like real vivid dreams and then you wake up and you can't remember what happened, but you had a dream? That's not what's happening in this one tonight, but it's something to think about. It's pretty creepy when you can't relate a vision or a dream that you had. So for this episode, I found 3 stories online. None of these are fan submitted, which is fine. I'm going to continue doing the show, whether they're fan submitted or not. But I'm going to give a little bit of feedback and some of my own experiences and even just some wild commentary because, that's kind of what I do, right? This first one is called Rippled Space by Alex Woodgarbage. Great name. There is nothing, just emptiness everywhere. I'm not even in this void. It's just there, and I somehow know it. I feel infinitely alone, and I'm afraid. No, that's not really that scary. It's just kind of boring and bland, in my opinion. What a shitty way to start a nightmare, right? Then a shape takes form. It's an oval shape. I can feel the shape as if I was the shape. I can feel its roundness, and it's like I'm bound to it, but I'm not. The feeling of roundness is everywhere, like all my senses have been put through a fisheye lens. This somehow gives me comfort, although I'm still very disturbed. You're also hallucinating on some shrooms there, my dude. That's some intense shit right there. To feel like an oval. What an experience. I mean, I've tripped. I mean, I've done some things, so I get it. Um, So I guess hallucinating could be a dream state, right? Yeah, I guess. Well, let's keep going. Then a ripple occurs, and the big emptiness starts to pulsate violently. The surface of perfect oval shape starts to deform, like water in a cup being shaken. The shaking becomes more violent, and the ripples become sharp and are everywhere, like a violent ocean. I can feel them, and I can feel the shape breaking apart, and I start panicking. I don't know that this is a nightmare. I mean, sure, if you got a fear of shapes, yeah, I guess people have that fear of shapes. So, y- y- if I was tripping balls and everything was a shape, and I felt like it was attacking me, yeah, I guess. From my view, listening to this though, it's just a very odd way of explaining that you're trapped in nothingness and creating your own illusion, which in itself, I guess, is kind of creepy. Then it all collapses. I wake up and I'm drenched in sweat. I have had this nightmare since young childhood. It comes along every couple of years when I'm sick and feverish. The fact that repeats means maybe you should lay off the drugs, man. I'm gonna guess that you do a lot of drugs. I'm just joking. I mean, nightmares are nightmares. Who can explain a nightmare? Why do you have the nightmares that you have? Why do you have the visions that you have when you sleep? When you hallucinate, whatever you're doing, it's creepy. It's weird. I don't really have an explanation for it. The shape thing's kind of odd. You're explaining fear in blank shapes. That's different for sure. The fact that it was so out there, I can't say I've had any nightmares like that. So that's good. It's a good one. Next up, highly animated is what I titled this one by Lick Pink Lady. All right. Interesting username. I smoked chronically for years. All right, good start. I've not smoked at all for maybe a year or so now, but my dreams are scary and vivid and at times weird. Writing this after just having woke up at 6 a.m., I dreamt that I was a kid in some weird video game. It's a good start. I mean, I could deal with that. Everything was cartoon style, but like weird cartoon style. Like, what are we talking? Are we talking about like Nintendo or Atari kind of cartoony? Or are we talking about like PS5, you know, Fortnite style cartooning? Yeah, I feel like I could have fun with either one of them. 2D would be pretty cool to experience, seeing how we've always lived our lives in such a, whatever 5D or whatever you want to call this. I could experience some 2D. I think that'd be pretty cool. Google James and the Giant Peach and the Binding of Isaac. It was some weird cross between those art styles. In the game, I was having to make it across a street in a neighborhood, but there was an old puppet thing that sat on a chair that looked like a jester and would morph between a grandma and a grandpa, giving me advice in an old creepy voice. All right. I'm not really sure what kind of game this is, but it's getting a little weird. I I'd get uncomfortable if I had to deal with something like that, I guess. I was also ridiculously small. Like my perspective of standing in a garden, I was like looking through the grass, and the toy factory that was on the opposite side of the street looked miles away. I eventually managed to sneak past the jester slash grandparent toy thing, and they jump scared me like a jack in the box, warning not to go to this toy factory. All right. And what would you title this game? Obviously, it's an adventure style game. You're trying to get to this factory with all this creepy thing. I think it's Hello Neighbor. Yeah, that's the game that we're talking about here, right? For those of you who don't know Hello Neighbor, basically this kid across the street keeps trying to break into the neighbor's house to save people. It's a weird, twisted storyline, but it's a fun game. I played it a few times. Then I met a wolf in the grass as I was making my way, who treated me in an Honest John from Pinocchio type way. I don't remember much else of the part, other than at some point the skinny, creepy wolf blew up until he was grotesquely fat, grinning and snapping his sharp teeth in my face. Then all of a sudden I wasn't in the game anymore. I was my young self at my cousin's house, and he was winding me up about being scared of this game. The menu / loading screen for it was on the TV. He left the room, and the giant fat wolf thing started climbing out of the TV and climbed on top of real life me, like 3 times the size of me, and I was just screaming and screaming while it snapped its teeth inches away from my face, and then I woke up. Yeah, I'll do this video game. You can throw me in there as that character. That'd be interesting. I want it to be like Super Mario style, though. Like boing, 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 jing, hitting the shit, and just kind of he gets the goal while I'm trying to fight off this grandparent jester and the big bad wolf. Yeah, bring it on. Let's give it a shot. That's a good one. A nightmare, meh. I don't know about if I'd call it a nightmare. I've never dreamt that I was in a video game either, so I can't really relate with that one. But it's a good story. I liked it. This last one is called Soaking It In by Jason Grimm. Now, I don't know if that's his real name or not, but I don't get scared by my nightmares, but I have some that would be considered scary. I was playing on a grassy riverbank, and there were these other kids with me who were playing. The kids were suddenly gone, but I couldn't figure out where they went. There was nowhere to hide. That was when I realized that there were no kids alive, nor had they been when I met them. They had drowned in the river previously, and some essence of them had stayed behind. All right, I'm starting to get some weird vibes from this dude. Then I smelled rotting flesh, and I looked over and saw the carcass of a sheep floating down the stream. It was bloated with chunks of flesh missing. definite serial killer vibes here. It washed up on the shore in front of me. I started walking towards it to see, but it started quivering, and then it started moving. Most of the skin on its face was missing, so its snout was basically skull and teeth. But the part of its face with the eyes was partly intact. One of its eyes had popped out of its socket, though, and was dangling by the optic nerve. All right, loaded sheep. You're standing in the stream while this sheep's coming up and you're approaching it. Pretty fucking weird, dude. If this was a reoccurring dream, I'd probably get checked out. There's some serious shit happening here, man. I could see its ribs sticking out on one side. It got up and started coming towards me. I walked away from it backwards, up the grassy embankment. It followed me, moving faster and faster. I just kept walking backwards. It got close to me and started to encircle me. Its face was looking right at me. I just kept turning because I didn't want to turn my back away from it. This, this is reminding me of my own dream, or nightmare, but I'll explain it after and it'll make more sense. It kept making smaller and smaller circles until it was breathing right in my face. I could just sense that its entire being was evil, and it wasn't coming from my body, but from my soul. Dude's got some skills writing to make it kind of intensify the situation while you're reading it. You know what I'm saying? You get that real serial killer vibe from him, like that Hannibal Lecter almost, in a sense. Hello, Clarice. I just relaxed and felt totally calm as the evil rushed inside me, into my very being. I became contaminated, and I knew that for the rest of my life and beyond, I would be no more. I had opened up and let the evil in. Everything that was once me was now evil. I'm starting to feel like this isn't so much of a nightmare as it is just some dude writing a clever story. It's good. I mean, I think that he's intensifying the situation to make it more creepy and drawing it out a little bit. But I picked it as the last one because it's he's going into some details and it's kind of intense. There was no point in resisting. Nothing could be done, and because of the helplessness, it would just be so. Everything that was once me became evil. That was really all there is to it. There would never be anything ever again in my reality other than this evil. Even thinking about the dream, I still feel like it was more than just a dream. Something took over. So I had this dream where I was in this random house, right? And I was with people I did know, and some people I had no clue who they were. And some of us were hanging out in a room. And all of a sudden, this creepy zombie-like deer, sheep, goat, moose looking thing comes barging through the bedroom. And I remember running after it. And it was me and one other person who I didn't know running after this thing and just obliterating it in the bathroom, or at least trying to. We're trying to kill this thing because it's like going nuts. And I remember we're trying to kill it, then we freak out and we're running away from it. And we're getting out of this house. And next scene, I'm like sitting on a sofa talking to somebody, and this thing comes out of the bedroom that we had just slaughtered it in, and it's fully intact, and it's going crazy, kicking and just knocking people out, and everybody starts running outside. And then there's this cliff. You get outside, it's like the yard, and there's just this cliff with a drop, and we're all out there. We have nowhere to go, and this sheep, goat, moose thing comes out and just starts headbutting and kicking people off this cliff, even some very important people in my life. And it happened, like I said, a couple times within a real short time span. It was creepy as hell, but that's what this last story kind of reminded me of. Nightmares and dreams are very interesting. I want to end this episode the same way I kind of started it. It's crazy that you can have some and not be able to replay them in your mind or retell them. And then you can have some where you remember them and they just don't leave. Like, what is it that makes that happen to us? I would love to hear your guys' feedback. And if you guys would like to have your story told on Merging Lanes, please reach out to me at jukeboxginger88@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your stories. And until next time, we'll see you guys around. If you have a story that you'd like to submit, email it to jukeboxginger88